Cooking is a bit of an underappreciated art in Dungeons & Dragons. I mean, you're fighting all sorts of crazy creatures and monsters, so why not use the parts of the creatures you're fighting as delicious meals to include and share with your party members? And I thought a great way to do this was to build Laios from Delicious in Dungeon in D&D. And I did watch this on Netflix with the English dub, initially not knowing that Laios is actually voiced by another bigger YouTuber from the Smosh channel, Damien Haas, who is also another big D&D fan. So let's bring it all around and build Laios, who is not an expert at being a chef early on, but he does learn a bit more as he goes. And we're going to start with the species, and of course, he's a human. This gives us the feat Resourceful, which isn't just using your resources properly, it is allowing you to have an automatic heroic inspiration when you finish a long rest. You get to learn one skill proficiency, and we're going to choose survival because the core of what makes survival good as a skill is that it's really great when it comes to foraging and finding things to eat, as well as tracking monsters and enemies. Then you also get the feature Versatile, which allows you to pick an origin feat right when you start building your character. And Laios is usually the person on the front lines, so we're going to go ahead and choose Tough, which gives us an extra 2 hit points of health per level of this overall build. Then when it comes to a background, to start leaning into the ability to do plenty of cooking, we want to choose Crafter. This gives us skill proficiencies in Investigation and Persuasion. It gives us the ability to haggle better for prices whenever you're dealing with merchants. So if you're buying anything non-magical, you get a 20% discount, and you get the feature Fast Crafting. So every long rest, you can craft something from your artisan abilities. And you get to learn 3 tool proficiencies with this, which you can use this feature for. Now, I really wanted to focus in on being a chef, so with the tools and things you can get proficiency in D&D, there's 3 proficiencies that would probably apply best. Brewer's supplies, so that way you can brew tons of beer or different drinks and appreciate the fermentation process. Smith's tools, which might allow you to build a pot or a pan to help do the cooking in the first place. In fact, under the crafted gear section, it says that if you have Smith's tools and you want to use your long rest to make something, you can make things for battle like caltrops or ball bearings, but you can also make an iron pot or just a bucket for collecting whatever you need for your cooking. And then of course, with the last proficiency, we're going to use cook's utensils because we want to make sure we're good at that in general. Then when it comes to our ability scores, we're going to have a point spread that looks like this. And then we're going to go ahead and dive into our class. While Delicious in Dungeon has a great array of classes, it's pretty obvious that Laios is a fighter. This gives us proficiency with martial weapons and every type of armor and shields. In the manga and anime, he is oftentimes not using a shield, but we do see him carrying a pan occasionally, which he can use as a shield if he really wants to. But most of the time we're just going to be using his longsword. Becoming a fighter gives us skill proficiency in 2 skills. We're going to grab Perception so that way you're much more aware of your surroundings, and Animal Handling, because you're really good at understanding creatures and animals more than most. Then at first level of fighter, you get to choose a fighting style. And because Laios is usually one of the people on the front lines taking the hits, I want to make sure he can survive that by taking the fighting style Defense. You're not going to be doing a lot of cooking if you can't survive the battle in the first place. Then the next feature at first level of fighter is Second Wind, allowing you to regain some hit points as a bonus action equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level. You can use this feature twice per long rest, regaining 1 use on a short rest, but you also get more and more uses of this as you level up in fighter. Then the last feature you get at first level of fighter is a Weapon Mastery. You can choose 3 to start, but there's only 2 we're really going to focus on because you do have an iconic longsword that you use as your character. So we'll get Weapon Mastery with a longsword, which gives us the feature Sap. So when you hit a creature with this weapon, they have disadvantage on their next attack roll. But in case you want to play up that your longsword is a bit bigger and go with a greatsword, we can grab Weapon Mastery in that as well, which gives you the Weapon Mastery feature, Graze. So even when you miss with an attack roll, you can still do some damage just by accidentally grazing the creature in the process, dealing damage equal to your ability modifier, but you're not able to amplify that damage in any way, shape, or form. Then at second level of fighter, you get Action Surge, allowing you to take 2 actions in a single turn once per short or long rest. But the new caveat caveat after 2024 is that you cannot use a magic action with that action surge. The last feature you get at second level of fighter is Tactical Mind. So when you fail an ability check, you can use one of your second wind feature uses to add a D10 to the roll to possibly succeed instead. But you don't regain any hit points if you go this route instead. However, the other trade-off is that if the ability check still fails, you don't use up that second wind usage. Then at third level of fighter, we get to choose a subclass. And there's one subclass that's very perfect for one particular feature, because otherwise Laios is very straightforward, so we don't really need to get overcomplicated with it. But there's one ability that one subclass has that is just too overly perfect for Laios that I can't ignore it. So we have to go with a Battle Master subclass. And we're not going to get that particular feature for a few more levels, but we still get plenty to help us out for right now. Starting with the feature Combat Superiority. So you get 4 superiority dice to spend on maneuvers. Those superiority dice are some D8 dice. When you spend them on a maneuver, you can do special battle tactics, which get amplified by whatever you roll on that superiority die. You get to learn 3 maneuvers right now, but as we level up in a Battle Master subclass, we get to choose more and more maneuvers. And the thing I don't focus on enough with maneuvers in the past is that while you're leveling up, your priorities are gonna change. And at level 3, you are a little bit squishy. It's a little too easy to just not survive a battle. So we want to make sure we mitigate that risk. We'll start off with the maneuver Rally, which allows you to use a bonus action to boost up one of your allies, giving them some temporary hit points equal to whatever you roll on your superiority die, plus half of your fighter level. We'll also make sure that if somebody hits you and they miss, they're going to have to pay for it by taking the maneuver Riposte, which is just generally pretty solid. It gives you something to always do with your reaction if you wind up not getting hit by an attack, because when an attack misses you, you can then attack the creature that tried to hit you with your reaction, and you can deal extra damage equal to whatever you rolled on your superiority die. Then, just to make sure you're a little safer, we'll also grab Parry. So when you're hit by a melee attack, you can reduce the damage by an amount equal to whatever you rolled on your superiority die plus your strength modifier. It could also be your dexterity modifier, but our strength is higher. Then the last feature you get from being a battle master is the feature Student of War. This gives you proficiency in one more set of artisan tools. And if we're just focusing on cooking, might as well go with something like alchemy, so you can have alchemist tools to help brew special things to mix into your concoctions. And then you also get to learn one more skill, so we'll grab athletics just because that's generally helpful to avoid getting grappled too often. Then at 4th level of fighter, we get an ability score improvement, but we're going to take a feat and we're definitely going to go with Chef. And this feat is actually pretty great when it comes to taking short rests and some other unique benefits. It does grant you proficiency with cook's utensils, which we already have, so we don't have to worry about that, which we could have ignored taking it earlier, but that's kind of the whole point of this build, so I wanted you to have it right from the get-go. But this feat does have some other benefits. First, it increases an ability score, so we're going to go ahead and boost up your constitution by 1 point. Then we get 2 other features. The first is called Replenishing Meal. So as part of a short rest, you can use your cook's utensils to prepare a meal for an amount of people equal to 4 plus your proficiency bonus. And at the end of that short rest, anybody that spent a hit dice to regain some health during that short rest, they gain an extra 1d8 worth of hit points. Which, if you also happen to have something like a bard in your party, that means short rests become a lot more valuable. And then the other feature is called Bolstering Treat. So with 1 hour of work during a long rest, you can cook a number of treats equal to your proficiency bonus. These special treats last for 8 hours, so the majority of the day, and any creature can use a bonus action to chomp down on one of these things, gaining a number of temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. This is especially useful early on in the game when every little amount of protective hit points is gonna be crucial. Then at 5th level of fighter, you get extra attack, allowing you to attack twice per action, and you get the feature Tactical Shift. So if you use your second wind ability, you can actually run half of your movement speed at the same time without provoking an opportunity attack. At 6th level fighter, you get another ability score improvement, and we need to make sure you can actually slay your enemies in order to be able to cook them later. So let's go ahead and boost up your strength by 2 points. Then at 7th level of being a battle master fighter, you get the feature that I wanted more than anything for Laios, and it's called Know Your Enemy. Laios does a lot of studying creatures, not just to know what to cook from them, but to know their strengths and weaknesses and to be better in battle. But it does also have that benefit of knowing what to cook. Know Your Enemy allows you to use a bonus action to understand all of your enemy's strengths, weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and then you can utilize those in battle. You can only use this feature once per long rest, but you can also spend one of your superiority die in order to regain that use. And speaking of superiority die, you get 1 more superiority die at level 7, and you get to learn 2 more maneuvers. So to keep the enemy away from the rest of your party, grab Pushing Attack. So if a creature is large or smaller, they have to make a strength saving throw, and if they fail, they're pushed 15 feet away from you. And on top of that, whatever you rolled on your superiority die as part of this maneuver, you get to add to your attack's damage. The other one we're going to grab is Fainting Attack, because you understand that some creatures are harder to hit. And Fainting Attack is going to help with that. It allows you to spend a bonus action to get advantage on your next attack against a creature. And if that attack hits, you get to add your superiority die to the damage. Then at 8th level of fighter, we get another ability score improvement, so let's go ahead and max out our strength right away. At 9th level of fighter, you get Tactical Master. So if you have a weapon mastery property that you can use on your equipped weapon, you can actually swap it out for something else if you need to. Swapping it for Push, Sap, or Slow for any or all of the attacks you're making with the weapon. Push obviously pushes a target a little bit further away. Sap we can already use with our longsword, and Slow slows your enemy down. Also at 9th level of fighter, you get Indomitable. So if you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it, and you get to add a bonus to that re-roll equal to your fighter level, which frankly is a huge boost to being able to re-roll a saving throw. If you fail it that time, the D&D gods just hate you. You can use this feature twice per long rest, but you get an additional use at 13th level and 17th level. At 10th level of being a battle master, you get improved combat superiority, so your superiority die upgrades from a D8 to a D10. Also at level 10, we get to choose 2 more maneuvers. So if you're going up against a creature with a ton of armor class, we're going to go ahead and take Precision Attack. So if you miss with an attack roll, you can expend your superiority die and add it to the attack roll, improving your accuracy, possibly turning it into a hit. And then to help keep the enemy away from your allies, we'll take Goading Attack. This allows you to add your superiority die to an attack's damage, while also trying to goad the enemy into attacking you and not your allies, forcing them to make a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they have disadvantage on any attacks against anybody that's not you. At 11th level fighter, you get another extra attack, meaning you get to attack 3 times per action. At 12th level of fighter, you get another ability score improvement. And I love that fighters get so many ability score improvements because we can take more feats to round out our unique abilities however we want to. And while it's not shown a ton, Laios has a very minimal amount of magical ability. So we're going to emphasize this with Magic Initiate. Now, I was very tempted to go with the Druid because then you can get something like Goodberry, which, you know, is another food, but it's just a berry and it's not really much cooking, so I didn't want to go that route. But he does get some very minor healing abilities, so we're going to go with Cleric for the spell list. This gives us 2 cantrips and 1 first level spell that we can cast once per long rest. So we'll grab Resistance to make sure that we can survive a bit more. We'll grab Spare the Dying to help make sure our allies just survive. And then for a tiny bit of healing, we're going to grab Cure Wounds, allowing us to heal an ally. Then at 13th level of fighter, you get Studied Attacks. So if you make an attack roll against a creature and you miss, you can have advantage on your next attack against them. At 14th level of fighter, we get another ability score improvement because fighters just get so many ability score improvements. So we're going to take another feat just because I want to round out him as a bit of a leader within the party. So we're going to take Inspiring Leader. This allows us to boost up either our Wisdom or Charisma modifier. We'll boost up our Wisdom because that's just generally what we're leaning into a little bit more. And this gives us the feature Bolstering Performance. So when you finish a short or long rest, you can give an inspiring speech or performance or whatever you want to call it. So up to 6 allies, including yourself if you want to, gain temporary hit points equal to your character level plus the modifier increased by this feat. So if you are healing up your allies a little more with the food they're eating, then you give them a rousing speech, or if you want, you could just include them all together. So you can boost up your allies' hit points during a short rest by giving them some delicious food, and then you can give them a rousing speech. Or if you want to roleplay it as just giving such a delicious meal that it inspires them at the same time, you can probably do that. So they'll gain a bunch of temp HP to help shield them and a bunch of normal HP to help heal them at the same time. Then at 15th level of being a battle master, you get the feature Relentless. So once per turn when you use a maneuver, instead of expending a superiority die, you can just roll a d8 and use that for your maneuver instead, meaning that you have essentially a free maneuver on every turn. It just happens to have a slightly smaller die that you used to use at lower levels, but you still get one more die to use at this level because the amount of superiority die you have access to just increased at level 15, and the amount of maneuvers you have access to also increased because you get to learn 2 more. And at this point, you might be attacking a bunch of creatures all at once, so we're going to go ahead and grab Sweeping Attack. So you can attack a second creature within 5 feet of your original target with the attack, dealing an amount of damage just equal to the superiority die to the second creature. So it's not quite as much damage, but you're still attacking 2 creatures at the same time, which is nice to be able to throw in. And then the other maneuver I want to grab is Commander's Strike. As a fighter, you get a lot of attack, but you don't happen to hit as hard as some other members in your party might be able to. Because if we're just going with a delicious and dungeon type party, you wind up having a barbarian and a rogue in your party. Barbarians hit a little bit harder than you, but rogues usually only get 1 attack and they hit way harder than you because they have access to sneak attack damage. So Commander's Strike allows you to replace one of your attacks with one of your allies' attacks. So you can give up an attack and tell your ally, go ahead and hit them. And then your ally gets to use their reaction to get an attack where they're going to do whatever they usually do, whether that's just hitting really hard while being in rage as a barbarian, or hitting with the sneak attack damage, or any of that stuff, which is plenty of damage, but they also get to add your superiority die to their damage. I don't usually take that maneuver unless there's a rogue in the party or somebody that can hit really, really hard. Then at 16th level of fighter, you get another ability score improvement, and you're usually using a longsword, and I wanted to just take another feat. So we're going to take the feat Slasher. This focuses on dealing slashing damage. That's what longswords do. This allows you to increase your strength or dexterity by 1 point, so we'll go ahead and boost up our dexterity by 1, rounding it out, and it gives us 2 features. The first one is called Hamstring. So once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals slashing damage, you can reduce their speed by 10 feet. And don't forget, you can also add in whatever other weapon masteries you also have access to, so you can really mix and match here and just really be a solid battle tactician. The other feature you get from this feat is called Enhanced Critical. So if you happen to crit on an attack, any attacks that that creature makes until the start of your next turn are all at disadvantage. Then at 17th level of fighter, you get another use of Action Surge once per short or long rest. And then at 18th level of fighter, you get another feature from being a battle master called Ultimate Combat Superiority. So now your superiority die increased from a D10 to a D12, which is the highest damaging dice size that you get in D&D. Then at 19th level of fighter, you get to choose an epic boon. And just focusing on the idea that you're munching on some tasty food that helps you recover, I'm just going to go with the Boon of Recovery. This allows us to boost 1 ability score by 1 point. So we'll go ahead and round out that wisdom, and then we get 2 other features. The first one is called Last Stand. So if you get reduced to 0 hit points, you can then drop to 1 hit point instead, and then regain half of your hit point maximum on top of that, basically making it so you have an extra 50% of health once per long rest. And then the other feature you get is is Recover Vitality. So you have a pool of 10 D10 dice, and as a bonus action, you can expend any number of those dice and regain some hit points. You regain all of the dice on a long rest, but you can use one dice for a little snack, or you can chomp down on a huge meal all of a sudden like you're in Skyrim devouring a wheel of cheese, and make it so you're recovering all 10 of your D10s worth of health. And then finally, at 20th level fighter, you get another extra attack, meaning that you're attacking 4 times per action. And that brings you to max level, making it so you have a great mix of being a solid fighter that understands your enemy's weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and what's tasty on them, and then using that to cook them. If you want a character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, it's linked down in the description. And if you made it all the way here, I hope you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session.